Good morning, everyone. I trust that you are well. This morning's learning is dedicated in memory of Ami Bas Aryeh, Paul Casimir, Shol ben Shlomo, Yirmiyahu Yechia ben Moshe Eliezer, Shlomo ben Yechia ben Moshe Eliezer, ben Sil min Yitzchak, Aryeh ben Shimon Leah, Bas Faivo, Avram Mordechai ben Moshe Katna, Menashe ben Tzvi Zalman, Ralia, Menashe ben Tzvi Zalman, Ralia Bas Avram Pinkus. Wish all the families long life and only simchas. So I want to share with you. Good morning, everyone. Clarice, and Carol, and everyone else who are still joining us. Good morning. Lovely to see you. So I want to speak about a topic which the chief rabbi has been in the news for, and that is the discussion, the debate, which is happening in the public forum concerning assisted suicide. Okay, assisted dying, and the question arises: what is the Jewish view? Right? Surely we're a nation that prides itself on being compassionate and being considerate and being sensitive on wanting everyone to be comfortable, not to be in pain, to recognize the quality of life. So what exactly is the take for the Jewish people when it comes to assisted dying? And let me share with you an idea from the Parsha, and I think that will tie in hopefully with what we are discussing. Sorry, there are some people that are still joining us. Good morning, Estelle, Peter, Andy, and everyone else who are still coming through the door. You know, it's interesting. When I was young, I remember that if you came late to a class, the door was locked. You couldn't get in, right? So you should be very fortunate that I'm not actually locking the door if you're late. But actually, the truth is I'm always late. It just depends on the traffic. Good morning, Joe. So the idea is as follows. We know that perhaps one of the most enigmatic and perhaps puzzling, cryptic aspects in the whole of the Torah is in this week's Torah portion. Friends, you're all familiar with the story. The story is about the binding of Isaac. Abraham had been told by God, and it's important that we bear in mind the background, that through him he will have a future, he will have children, and a future, he will be the progeny for the future of the Jewish people. He'd been barren, him and his wife Sarah hadn't managed to have children till now. He's now ripe old age of 99, and he's told he's going to have a child. We discussed it already. And then they have Yitzchak, they have Isaac. And in the meantime, Abraham is having to go through and be challenged by God, to challenge himself, various tests and ordeals that Abraham had to endure. And he passes everything with flying colors. Come to the final test, the binding of Isaac. God tells Abraham, and bearing in mind what we just said, the backdrop, which is that Isaac is considered the future of the Jewish people. That's what Abraham had been told. What happens next? Take your son, Kachnes bincha, es yichidcha, take your son, your only son, Asher Havta, et Yitzchak, take your only son who you love, Yitzchak, and then God tells him to offer him up. How's Abraham meant to understand this? How's Abraham meant to react and to respond? Being told to sacrifice his son, to give up on his future. Not only that, what was the real test? That at that particular moment in time, in which the generation and culture and society in which Abraham lived, human sacrifice was the rage. It's what was in vogue. And Abraham had taken himself aside, and he had separated himself from the rest of humanity. He was an iconoclast, somebody who stood apart, the founder of monotheism, and all the beliefs and principles that are enshrined in the Torah and in our faith is something that Abraham embodied. And therefore, one of the most important principles of life is that life itself is sanctified. It's sacrosanct. The greatest gift is life itself that God has given us. And Abraham is now being told, seemingly, to fly in the face of everything that he had understood in relation to his faith, in relation to God. Take his son and offer him up. In other words, to give up on his future and to return to those idolatrous ways of the rest of the world, which is human sacrifice. That was the test. That was the test. And just when Abraham is about to slaughter his son, God comes to him through an angel and says to him, Abraham, Abraham, al tishlach yadcha alana. Don't bring your hand against your son. I want you demonstrated your willingness to offer to me anything and everything. But you should know, life is sacrosanct. That was the test. But the point is, I'm never going to ask of you to give up on life. And therefore, that is the message and lesson for us. That life is not in our hands. It's not up to us. We can't play God. We can't decide who deserves to live, who deserves to die, where the line should be drawn as to quality of life and not quality of life. And somebody who finds himself, and we're not here to judge anybody, but finds himself in a very, very terribly difficult living hell of terrible illnesses, terrible pain and suffering. We don't know what's going on in their thoughts. And if we start to play God and start to assist people in taking their own life, we're giving up on one of the most basic tenets of our faith and of every faith, the sanctity of life. We are here to preserve life, to make the most of life, to celebrate life, certainly not to take life or to diminish life. We'll do everything we can to support people, to care for people, but it's not for us to decide who is worthy of life, who shouldn't live, who should live. And that perhaps gives us this insight from this week's parasha, which happens, of course, nothing happens, to coincide with this public debate relating to assisted suicide, gives us some insight into the Jewish take on it. So we look forward to having a very special Shabbat. We look forward to having a provocative sermon where we'll be discussing about that terrible tragedy of an MP who was murdered and the Jewish take on politics. How do we disagree? When can we disagree? Tolerance, intolerance, is that the way forward? And much, much more. We look forward to seeing you on Shabbat. And in the meantime, we will continue with our prayers and thoughts for all those that are suffering. And of course, our thoughts today are with Zach Siegel, who very sadly, his father passed away yesterday, and the Levaya, I will believe, will be today. Zach, who is our warden, and sadly, his father succumbed to COVID and then pneumonia. We wish the family long life, and I'm sure details will be going out later on today. We continue with Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Memorial prayer, friends. Adonai Olamim Zachoes Nishmais Ami Basaria Paul Kazmir Shah Veshlomo Yumi Arichia ben Moshe Eliezer Shlomo Yechia ben Moshe Eliezer ben Sion Yitzchak Arav Shibbolei Bas Five of Rabban Mordechai ben Moshe Kana Moshe ben Asher ben Tzvi Rali Bas Avram Pinkus Shalach Uli Olamam Ana Balarachamim Asirem Seitzakana Fechali Olamim Yisros Chayim Shosam V'Anucha Mishkavasam B'Shalom V'Namar Amen. Long life wishes to all. Lastly, for Shalema prayer. And Joe's on here, I noticed, so just want to wish your mum a refuah shalema, Joe, as we are about, and to Andy, I wish you a refuah shalema, Andy. Big guy, please God, you'll be well, and look forward to having you back on our security very soon. Mi Shaber Chavasin Robin, so Yaakov Moshe Arndo Shlomo, who Yavar Rapis Achelim, Babu Shanim Ispalim, Babu Ram, Biz Chazaka Shpochi, Malirachim Aleim, Lachmula for some, Yish Lachlim Fushim Nishmam Lacholim Baso, Shachali Sorafus Nef Fusakov, Hashbags Makariv and Omar, Amen. For Shalema, I penned some words in the You and Us this week on behalf of the Rabbinate relating to the first anniversary of Rabbi Lord Sachs. So if you want to read what I wrote, it's in the You and Us, which you would received as an email. And of course, we'll be paying tribute to Rabbi Sachs through his ideas in the sermon this week. And hopefully there'll be a hack and blog a bit later on, all being well. So in the meantime, it's goodbye from me and goodbye from you, and we look forward to seeing you very soon. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Look after yourselves, keep well. Please God, we'll be back Sunday morning. Take care.